Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Companies are fire support and liaison units of the United States Marine Corps. The mission of ANGLICO is to provide Marine Air Ground Task Force commanders liaison capability to plan, coordinate, and conduct terminal control of fires in support of joint, allied, and coalition forces. But this mission statement, ANGLICOs are not designed to support U.S. Marine Corps maneuver elements. Instead, the doctrinal purpose of ANGLICO is to provide fire support and coordination in support of units adjacent to the MAGTF. Overview. The mission of ANGLICO is to plan, coordinate, and conduct terminal control of fires in support of joint, allied, and coalition forces operating in, or adjacent to, the MAGTF battle space. Although ANGLICO Marines are best known for their ability to control close air support, they are equally well trained to employ ground and sea-based fires, to include cannon artillery, rocket artillery, precision-guided munitions, and naval gunfire support. ANGLICO organization. Because ANGLICOs are designed to support non-USMC forces, they are divided into elements appropriate for each level of a foreign forces structure. Company headquarters. The division cell serves as the senior USMC fires liaison between the MAGTF and the supported division headquarters. This team is led by the commanding officer of ANGLICO, the executive officer, and approximately 15 Marines and sailors from the company staff. Their equipment is geared towards planning and communication from a headquarters. This is by no means a desk job, however. During recent deployments to Afghanistan, company staffs have repeatedly engaged in direct combat with the enemy while visiting smaller teams. Ad hoc firepower control teams led by the JTACs and FACs at the company headquarters also supported high-visibility operations. Platoon, often referred to as a Brigade Platoon. This unit supports a brigade of friendly forces, and as such is led by a major and an experienced gunnery sergeant with an MOS of 0861-8002. The staff is rounded out by an air officer and a Naval Gunfire Liaison Officer. As with the company headquarters, this unit's equipment is geared toward command post operations via tactical combat. Brigade Platoon Marines frequently form ad hoc FCTs in support of specific operations, and serve as combat replacements, augments for SALTs and FCTs. Because of the small size and the frequency with which they train together before deployments, brigade platoons develop distinct identities and tight-knit relationships. There are 2 brigade platoons in each active duty ANGLICO and 3 brigade platoons in each reserve component ANGLICO. Supporting Arms Liaison Team. The Supporting Arms Liaison Team is designed to provide a comprehensive fire support coordination capability for a supported battalion. A SALT consists of 18 Marines and sailors, an 8-man SALT headquarters and 2 5-man FCTs. The SALT leader is a naval aviator on a ground tour as a forward air controller. These naval aviators are usually mid to senior grade captains who have completed several deployments. The SALT chief is a Staff Sergeant 0861-8002. Though the primary missions is to provide fire support coordination to the supported battalion, the communication suite planning capabilities and experience of the SALT lends them well to jump COC operations and robust involvement in the non-fires operations of the supported battalion. Each active and reserve brigade platoon contains 2 SALTs. Firepower Control Team. The Firepower Control Team is the basic unit of ANGLICO operations. By the table of organization and equipment, there are 2 FCTs per salt. In practice, however, additional FCTs are often created based on the availability of Joint Terminal Attack Controllers, with each FCT being led by a JTAC. Because FCTs are frequently created on an ad hoc basis from the rest of the company, every scout observer and radio operator in ANGLICO is trained and prepared to serve on a FCT. There is also historical precedent for highly motivated support Marines within ANGLICO to be trained and employed on a FCT. FCTs are led by junior to mid-grade captains, and sometimes Navy lieutenants of the same grade, who are qualified JTACs, while the 2 and AMP-E allows for FCT leaders to hold any ground combat arms MOS. The vast majority of team leaders are artillery officers. The team chief is a sergeant, and usually is qualified as a joint fires observer. More experienced team chiefs frequently attend tactical air control parties school to obtain certification as a joint terminal attack controller. Team members include a senior radio operator, a junior 0861, and a junior 0621. Even this small team may be broken down further based on task organization, especially among MEU detachments. FCTs frequently operate as 2 teams of 2 to 3 Marines each, and it is not unheard of for ANGLICO Marines to operate individually while supporting Special Operations Forces raids or MEU operations such as visit, board, search, and seizure. FCTs participate in ground combat operations alongside the supported unit, requesting and controlling air and fire support assets on the unit's behalf. This entails detailed integration with friendly maneuver units and defensive operations. Because of the team's experience and training, FCTs frequently advise supported company commanders on a broad range of fires and aviation-related matters. In the liaison role, MAGTF commanders use ANGLICO teams to understand the partnered units better. Similarly, the supported unit gains a better understanding of the operations of the adjacent MAGTF battlefield environment. ANGLICO is never assigned its own physical battle space, as teams are constantly on the move. An ANGLICO inherits its AO from whichever unit it supports. A firepower control team in Iraq, for example, consists of no more than 4 to 5 men. The 5th man is needed to man the gun turret during a vehicle-mounted mission. The primary member is a forward air controller or a joint terminal attack controller. A radio operator and artillery observer will compose 2 of the 3 remaining team members, with the last member often being a squad automatic weapon gunner. Even though each team member has their own specialty, ANGLICO Marines are all cross-trained within the team. This high level of training and proficiency is what makes ANGLICO units so effective. While ANGLICO units can perform many different tasks, close air support has been its primary mission in recent conflicts. There are a limited number of JTACs in Iraq, and arguably the most sought out are from Marine Corps ANGLICO units. The Marine Corps JTAC school is one of the most academically challenging schools within the military, with unusually high standards. To pass this school, a JTAC candidate must successfully coordinate 14 missions with live aircraft, and pass 3 intense written examinations. ANGLICO teams have been working with all types of units in Iraq, from a typical Marine or Army infantry company to a SEAL or Iraqi Army unit. Their training at all levels allows them to easily be plugged into any environment. Most Iraqi units will have, on some level, an ANGLICO team assigned to them. Each year, ANGLICO teams train for several weeks with the British Commandos. Training ANGLICO units require Marines who are proficient in a wide variety of specialized military skills, in addition to the primary MOS training necessary to coordinate fire support, such as artillery fire support, field radio operations, direct air support operations, and naval gunfire spotting. 3rd, 4th and 6th ANGLICO Marines receive airborne training and jump qualification at Fort Benning's Army Airborne School, making the Reserve ANGLICOs two of the handful of Marine Corps units in which Marines are jump qualified. ANGLICO Marines regularly receive further advanced training in other insertion methods, fieldcraft, SEER, and other specialized and demanding activities. This, combined with the fact that ANGLICO Marines routinely serve with and must cross-train with a wide variety of U.S. and Allied units around the world, such as the British 148 Commando Forward Observation Battery, Royal Artillery, including Recon and Special Operations units and Foreign Services, makes ANGLICO units among the toughest and most highly regarded in the Marine Corps. ANGLICO units can deploy as an entire company of 150 to support the large-scale operations of an entire Marine Expeditionary Force, or, more commonly, deploy in 4 to 7-man teams to support the activities of non-Marine units. ANGLICO Basic Course. Before deactivation in 1999, each ANGLICO ran their own in-house training program called ANGLICO Basic Course. Historically, this was run by the 3rd Brigade Platoon, which was composed of Marines who had not yet passed ABC, and their instructional cadre. Since reactivation, operational tempo has largely precluded the re-establishment of this practice. Instead, ABC-like courses targeting the entire company have been held in order to solidify manning decisions and level the playing field by giving all ANGLICO Marines training in basic FCT skills. 2D ANGLICO reinstituted biannual ABCs in spring 2013. 2D ANGLICO has 4 purposes for ABC: provide training and verification of a baseline skill level for all ANGLICO Marines, provide BDE platoon commanders, sergeants information IO make informed team-building decisions, foster unit cohesion and esprit de corps, and identify and train support Marines as combat replacements. History. The history of the ANGLICO units dates back to the formation of Joint Assault Signal Company units who fought in the Pacific theater of World War II. At the time, the JASCO units were used to coordinate air artillery and naval gunfire support between the Marines, Army and U.S. Navy during the Pacific Island hopping campaign. The most famous JASCO unit is the 594th Forward Sections during the Battle of Okinawa and the Philippines campaign. Following the reorganization of the U.S. Armed Forces under the Department of Defense in 1947, the JASCO units were disbanded and the responsibility transferred to the U.S. Navy. In 1949, the Marine Corps began the process of recreating the JASCO capability under the new ANGLICO designation. ANGLICO 2nd Signals Battalion, 2nd Marine Division, was formed in December 1949 at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. 1st Marine Division formed a similar unit at the same time, designated ANGLICO 1st Signal Battalion, 1st Marine Division. A 3rd unit, 1st ANGLICO Fleet in Marine Force Pacific, was activated on the 2nd of March 1951 at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The original ANGLICOs, created in both 1st Marine Division and 2nd Marine Division in December 1949, continued to exist and serve in combat throughout 1950 and 1951 in the Korean War. These were the first ANGLICO units to stand up and serve in combat. Teams from these units served in combat attached to USMC battalions, Korean Marine battalions, and U.S. Army units. These ANGLICOs were entirely separate from the numbered ANGLICOs which first stood up in Hawaii in 1951, and predate those units by over a year. First ANGLICO activated Subunit 1 for duty in Vietnam in May 1965, where the unit was continuously deployed for 8 years. Subunit 1's first commanding officer was Lieutenant Colonel George H. Albers. It was the only Marine Corps organization reporting directly to Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, which assumed operational control of the subunit in September 1966. Throughout its involvement in Vietnam, Subunit 1 NGLO and TACP teams operated in all 4 tactical zones and was the last Fleet Marine Force unit to stand down from the war. Subunit 1 provided naval gunfire and close air in support of South Vietnamese Army and Marine units, South Korean Army and Marine units, Australian and New Zealand Armed Forces, as well as United States Army and Marine combat divisions. While only an estimated 1,350 men served the subunit over those 8 years, they contributed in no small way to almost every combat operation of the war. In March 1972, naval gunfire spotters directing fire from the gunline ships of the U.S. Navy provided the only counter-battery fires directed at North Vietnamese artillery, raining ordnance all over 1st Corps in advance of the Easter offensive. Unit strength at the time was only 107 officers and men, both Navy and Marine, who, with the backs to the wall, made up the numbers deficit by tenaciously providing around-the-clock support. In the late 1970s, under the leadership of LTCOL James E. Toth, 2nd ANGLICO began experimenting with the concept of the universal spotter, a Marine trained to coordinate and control fires from artillery, naval gunfire, and close air support. Previously, the organization of ANGLICO, USMC artillery and infantry units provided separate surefire control party teams, artillery liaison and tactical air control party teams from the observation and control of supporting arms for both USMC and other forces maneuver units. The experimental concept relied on company-level teams known as firepower control teams, containing personnel and equipment to control fires for all supporting arms, and battalion-level groups known as supporting arms liaison teams responsible for coordination of all supporting arms. Enabled 2nd ANGLICO to greatly reduce the number of personnel required to support U.S. Army and Allied units, and streamlined the request for an approval of the delivery of terminal control of USMC and US-sent supporting arms. The universal spotter concept was later adopted by all ANGLICOs and was the forerunner of today's Joint Terminal Attack Controller and Joint Fires Observers. The early 1980s saw ANGLICOs operating at a high tempo. Between June 1982 and March 1984, the company supported 35 operations with the U.S. Army and Allied nations, ranging from Arctic operations in northern Norway, exercises in the Mediterranean, TACP support for USN carrier wings in the Caribbean, and training operations with South American militaries. Additionally, elements of the company participated in sensitive peacekeeping operations in Beirut, Lebanon for the PLO evacuation and subsequently the multinational peacekeeping force. 2nd ANGLICO teams supported British, Italian, French and Lebanese army elements and in engaged enemy targets on several occasions via USMC, USN and Lebanese supporting arms, including 16 inches naval gunfire from the US, New Jersey and 122 mm rocket fire from Lebanese Army BM-21, multiple rocket launches, and 2nd ANGLICO SALT officer conducted naval gunfire spotting from an A-6 intruder, the first time this had been done from this platform. Also, despite having nearly a third of its strength engaged internationally, for the first time in its history, 2nd ANGLICO deployed in support of 18th Airborne Corps for Operation Urgent Fury. This was also the first time an entire U.S. Army division, the 82nd Airborne Division, was supported during combat operations. 2nd ANGLICO teams airlanded at Point Salines Airfield with the division's first elements and controlled USNLTVA-7 Corsair II aircraft in close air support and assisted in deconflicting indirect fires from Army units. During the mid to late 1980s, under Lieutenant Colonel J. M. Wills and Lieutenant General A. M. Gray, 2nd ANGLICO went through a period of refocusing on core skills including regular live naval gunfire training with the US Iowa battleship, and more frequent mass tactical exercises with the Army's 82nd Airborne Division. Additionally, the 2D ANGLICO began to train in low-intensity conflict response with weapon systems such as the Air Force AC-130 Spectre, special patrol insertion, extraction, and fast rope insertion methods. In 1999, all active-duty ANGLICO units were deactivated, the responsibilities transferred to less effective Marine liaison elements. The two reserve units, 3D and 4th ANGLICO, were the only ANGLICO units that remain. In 2003, amidst the U.S. war in Iraq and global war on terror and a high operational tempo being demanded of the reserve ANGLICO units, 1st and 2D ANGLICO were reactivated. Shortly thereafter, in 2004, 5th ANGLICO was formed. In 2008, ANGLICO began supporting combat operations in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. A detachment from 2D ANGLICO was sent as part of MAGTF, and in 2009, a Brigade Platoon from 2D, followed by another from 1st and 3D, joined the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade. In 2013, 6th ANGLICO was formed in Concord, California, with a 3D Brigade Platoon detachment at Joint Base Lewis-McChord, Washington. Current units: 6 ANGLICOs currently exist in the U.S. Marine Corps. Currently only the reserve ANGLICO units retain their jump missions.